Another warning concerning a super-eruption by one of the world's most high-threat volcanoes, a supervolcano, the supervolcano of Yellowstone, warning as catastrophic effects of a super-eruption assessed. It would make a normal life impossible, they said. The supervolcano poses an enormous threat to the U.S. and the globe. Experts warning that normal life within 500 miles of the volcano would be impossible after a super-eruption. As we know, Yellowstone is one of the 21 plus supervolcanoes on Earth, each at least 7 times more powerful than Mount Tambora. That produced the biggest recorded eruption in history. Supervolcanoes have a volcanic explosivity index of VEI of 8, the highest value on the index. In the past 2.1 million years, Yellowstone has erupted 3 times, the most recent being a supervolcanic eruption 640,000 years ago, and was 1,000 times bigger than Mount St. Helens eruption of 1980. The main feature of a supervolcano is, of course, the magma chamber. Each one has a very large magma chamber, the underground reservoir filled with hot flowing magma rock, and Yellowstone is said to be due an eruption based on the cycle of previous eruptions, though it's generally accepted that anything within the next 10,000 years is not likely. It has, though, however, not stopped field workers modeling prospective eruptions as explored during Naked Science documentary titled Supervolcanoes. It's here that Eric Myers, the documentary narrator, reveals how after a super-eruption, life within a 500-mile radius of Yellowstone would cease to be normal. And let's remember we have other supervolcanoes in the United States, one of them being about 600 miles southwest, and that's the California supervolcano of Long Valley Caldera. We have seen that Yellowstone is inflating, especially around the northeastern area of Wyoming and around Hebgen Lake, and inflating is also Long Valley Caldera of California. In 2004, scientists looked into the effects of past super-eruptions, and they used them to predict what might happen in any future or modern-day eruptions of Yellowstone. And while the eruption itself would be devastating, of course, Myers explains for those who survived the explosion it could get worse. DNA evidence suggests that the last supervolcano eruption created a mini ice age, and that nearly led to the extinction of the human race. He said an eruption of Yellowstone supervolcano would cause widespread devastation across the United States. Let's remember the Taupo volcano eruption of the North Island of New Zealand that erupted about 26,500 years ago was an almost extinction level event. Anthropologists believe that only 2,000 humans, that's what, 1,000, if they're equal men and women, 1,000 couples were left worldwide to repopulate the world. Can you imagine? We had various extinction level events from eruptions or celestial body impacting our Earth in the past. So now going back to this, what would happen in a super eruption? He says an eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano would cause widespread devastation across the U.S. On the first day, those spared by the initial blast would face pyroclastic flows that would seep out from Yellowstone, destroying nearly everything within 60 miles. And let's remember, we've seen mountains full of ash so hot, the pyroclastic flows are so hot, they turn red and they welded onto the ground, making mountains of ash, over 600 feet high. He says 3 days after a super eruption, normal life within 500 miles of the volcano would be impossible, and within a week, the center of the U.S. would be buried under a thick carpet of ash. It would be killing thousands with a painful lung disease. You wouldn't be able to breathe. Professor Michael Rampino, geologist at New York University, considered how the deadliest part of the supervolcano eruption would be the gases that remain in the air rather than ash that falls to the ground. He visited an old tombstone in New Hampshire that reports the events of 1816, a year that became known as the Year Without a Summer. Severe climate abnormalities caused average global temperature to decrease by 0.4 degrees Celsius to 0.7 degrees Celsius. Evidence suggests that this was caused by the 1815 Mount Tambora volcano eruption, the most powerful recorded eruption in history. Professor Ampino said, "This is a memorial to a farmer named Reuben Whitten, who managed to save the town of New Hampshire by growing enough wheat on his land to feed the community. God bless his soul." There was snow in June and frost in July and again in August that killed most of the wheat in the lowlands. But Reuben Whitten managed to grow enough wheat in the highlands here to feed the town, he said. In 1816, the growing season in New Hampshire dropped from 120 days to just 16 days. I mean, that you can't grow anything in 16 days, God forbid. From 120 days to 16 days, with bad weather having caused harvests to fail in Europe and across the world. Though 10,000 miles away from New Hampshire, the Mount Tambora eruption offers a clue as to the potential aftermath of a Yellowstone eruption, as Professor Rampino explained, that droplets of sulfur dioxide were spread worldwide by stratospheric winds. So it's not just the United States that would be impacted, obviously. The drop in temperature would cause famine around the world. Now, the sulfur dioxide in the stratospheric winds, he says these droplets cut out some of the sunlight, and the sun therefore appears dimmer. This dimmer effect caused the famine of 1816. Some estimates suggest Tambora killed 71,000 people, twice as many as the devastating 1883 eruption of Krakatoa, mainly through famine, of course. A supervolcano would likely have a greater effect because these 1883 were not super eruptions, and they caused such a great effect of famine. So you can imagine what a supervolcano would do. Professor Ampino said, "We estimate that the drop in temperature globally after a Yellowstone-sized eruption would be about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Frost and snowfall even in equatorial regions. Tropical vegetation has no cold hardness. So a frost in the tropics would kill off all the above ground vegetation, you can imagine. The loss of a growing season of 1 or 2 years could see billions of people losing their lives because of this." So this is what a super eruption obviously could do. This is by Charlie Pittock on Express UK. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.